Welcome to the Operation Move podcast. Yes, it's still a thing in a way that is kind of funny in terms of what this episode is about. It took me about a month from when we recorded this to when it's actually getting published, which is just fairly typical, I'd say. Anyway, in this episode, I'm talking a bit to Kirsten about the balance is too strong a word. Let's not say balance, but the juggle of kids and work and university that has, that we have chosen this year. But I think it's often a transition that does happen at a certain point when your kids are just that little bit older. Kirsten started working pretty much, she's a shift worker, but started working full time last year. And I've started doing a lot more work this year now that my kids are 10 and 13. And it is not always smooth sailing. In the past, even when the kids were small, I always pretty much worked full time, but it was more in my coaching role with Operation Move and less so with things that are external to that. And so this year, I've started taking on contract work, which at the moment it had started at about 10 hours a week, and now it's probably up to about 30 hours a week. And a big part of that in a way is protecting Operation Move, because I didn't want the message to be diluted. I didn't want it to turn into a thing where I was positioning running as a way for people to lose weight or something that might have been a bit more lucrative in terms of online programs. I wanted to focus on the people who I really care about, which is the community. So I wanted to focus on Run Club. I wanted to focus on my one-on-one clients, and I wanted to make sure that it maintained its core purpose and that I didn't have the stresses of it needing to be profitable, basically. So that was sort of the reason for taking on a whole heap more outside work, and it just kind of collided with me starting university, with going to uni to start exercise science. And when I originally applied, I thought I want to sort of further my education, and I got accepted into some post-grad programs just based on my coaching experience. But the more I thought about it, the more I really wanted, I wanted all of the background of doing that undergrad degree. I didn't want to sort of have to pick things that were more sort of coaching focused and less science focused, just because I hadn't done that foundational learning. And even though particularly part-time is going to take a while, so ordinarily part-time it would be a 6-year degree, I'm going to try and do it in trimesters, which would turn it into a 4-year degree, but still it's a long time. And once you sort of have all the full-time stuff and all the uni on top, it's just been a really crazy few months. Whereas Kirsten is a registered nurse, so she is doing post-grad qualification. So we're in sort of different ends of the spectrum there, but it's also something that she's been juggling with her family life and her training. And I thought it would just be a really good time to jump into it and talk about what that can look like, particularly because I think that there are a lot of people who had certain job disruptions or whatever else with COVID and are getting back into, retraining or going back to study. And so it's probably quite a common thing at the moment with just trying to navigating everything. So I'll stop talking now. Thank you for Kirsten for being on the podcast with me, even though he's very, very busy too. And I hope you enjoy the conversation. How's your morning been?
Unproductive. Easily sidetracked. And I'm just inhaling some hot chips and gravy. So yeah, no, what have we? I don't know. I couldn't get out of bed this morning, and then had to. We were late to get the kids to. Well, the kids weren't late to school, but we were late getting out the door,
Yeah.
and then straight to PT, and I had conveniently forgotten that it was testing week, so there was some 3 rep max back squats and a little bit of a AMRAP burner and some other fun things to do. So, and then I decided I needed a coffee after that instead of going straight to study. So I went and had a coffee, and then I don't know, I had to do some retail therapy apparently as well. So got bigger. So
Yeah,
then,
that this morning, like when I had a thing, which was, there were so many rounds, but there was like, the first thing was like 5 rounds of, what was I doing? Maybe I've blocked it out now, but doing like push press with dumbbells,
yep.
And reverse lunges with the same dumbbells, and then going into a calorie row, which was like 16 calories, which was taking about a minute, and it's just like an all-out effort of like trying to keep, for me, that's sort of like trying to keep the calorie per hour on the rower like above 1,000, which is like hard. And like, it's like when I was recovering, because I got 2 minutes recovery in between each, and he's like, what are you struggling with? Is it muscular or is it breathing? And I'm like, it's everything.
It's an everything thing.
But yeah, it's like one of those things where, like, I do actually think it was mostly legs, like going from the lunges to the rower, because like I get through the first 30 seconds, okay, and then be like, and now I'm done.
Yeah. At least it wasn't the bike. Bike and lunges don't mix. That's what we were doing this morning. Not cool. You just walk, you get off the bike and you've got jelly legs, and then you've got to make them work again.
Yeah, and then one of them, the computer stopped working on the rower, and so like I'm rowing and it's just saying 0, 0, 0. Like,
not cool.
Not good.
Not cool.
Not cool at all.
But it was yeah, I don't know. It's rainy here, so I just feel like I just want to hibernate.
Yeah.
In this kind of weather. I don't want to go outside. I don't want to have to do anything. So, but it's it's only going to get worse tomorrow apparently. So,
Great.
I'm not sure what that's going to look like for our road run tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I had set up my alarm early to I've been upgraded to an hour and 20-minute run on Mondays. And I was like, I'll get up early because I've got plenty of work to do. And I'll do the run and then I'll go to PT. Hindsight, I'm glad. Like, I woke up, it was pouring rain, and I was like, I am just going to go back to bed for another hour and then the PT. And then, like, because I have a rest day on Friday, I thought I'll just shift everything over a day when hopefully there'll be like less rain. And then I got to PT and saw like all the sprints we had, and I'm like, gee, that was a good choice. So yeah, I had kind of thought, like maybe I could do the run in the afternoon, but that's something that I always think in the morning and then never.
It's just
rarely in the afternoon. There's like
that's when
got like kids getting home, and I've got to go to the post office before they get home because it's like a package thing, and like I got a phone call. By the time all that's done, it's like I just don't think I'll be heading out into the wet dark.
No.
I'm very impressed with my foot. Like when I started running, I used to go to the gym every night, like after I put Piper down after her feed.
Yeah.
I used to go to the gym at 8 o'clock at night.
Isn't that ridiculous? Don't you ever look back and you think to yourself, how did I manage to have the commitment to myself and to my running to be able to do that? Because I wouldn't be, like, the things I used to do, I wouldn't be able to do them. I'm not interested in doing that sort of thing now. You know, like, as if, who's like, in what? I mean, I'm going to bed at 8 o'clock. I'm going to the gym to go for a run.
Very disappointed. Like, the kids are at the moment having more like a 9 o'clock. Held off for as long as I possibly could. And now it's like, well, if they're even a teensy bit late getting to bed, it's like, well, I have to go to bed now.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you're doing, but I need to be asleep.
I now need to go to bed. Yeah. That's and that's, but then at some point, and I look into the future with a little bit of dread, because at some point they'll probably want to get a job, right? And they go they work till 10 o'clock at night. Who is going to go and get this kid from work and stay up that late that they can drive into town and, you know, go and pick up a kid from work? It's
Josh is definitely doing that job, because he's like on an opposite schedule to me, where he loves like being a bit of a night owl. And so we can be like a little bit of like ships passing in the night. Like, we have to sort of like fully organise like our date nights and stuff, which involves him probably going to bed a bit earlier and be like staying up a bit later. And I'm like, this is the day.
I'm prepared to make the commitment to stay up past 9:30 today.
That is definitely, but it's different with you because, you know, like, he's not always home.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it's, you know, it's a half-hour round trip just to get into town and back, and let alone sitting around and waiting for somebody to finish work and, you know, or finish their pack up and get out to the car. You just it's I hear about what some of these parents do, and, you know, like 16-year-olds who like to go to gaming nights and things like that. And you just think, like, you finish at what time? 11 o'clock, and you expect me to stay awake till pick you up and not go to bed till midnight? Crazy.
You think that your sleepless nights are over, like, once they're no longer, you know, and once they're sleeping through, but they're not.
They're not. And you get a little bit of respite while they're, you know, between the ages of 7 and maybe 13. And then they start staying up.
Isn't that the purple patch? Somebody said that to me when I had a baby, that the purple patch of parenting was like 7 to 13. And I was like, what do you reckon? And
what drugs are you on, lady? And actually, it's true.
It is true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, you know, they're old enough to like do stuff, but not so old enough that you're the most embarrassing person on the planet.
They're not old enough to hate your guts on site, you know.
Not old enough to give me the tween face, which I've been getting a lot lately.
The lip, the stares,
a scowl. I'm like, oh,
what have I done now? Oh well. You just get a thick skin though. You just, oh well.
Yeah.
Hormones.
That's the trick, is to like not take anything.
Not sweat it too much.
Because it's like, you know, it's
not personal.
No.
It's just a growth.
Really, like, I think that it's only going to get worse, because she's already like at the stage of finding it really frustrating that she can't win an argument.
Yeah.
And but I think it's actually been quite nice with starting uni, and she's just started high school. And, so she's working on assignments, I'm working on assignments. She's got like a big art theory assignment that's due in next week, and she's picked this landscape artist, which is quite challenging because, you know, like, they have to do all this stuff about
meaning, and it's like maybe it doesn't mean anything. Like maybe it's just a pretty picture. Like, and I was saying to her, I said that the key to art theory is it doesn't have to be real. Like you can make anything up as long as you can like back it up.
Yeah.
You know? So like I could say that this is this picture, which is like it's like a farmer with cows and there's some sunshine coming in and it's called like sort of like melting frost or something like that.
Yep.
And you could easily make the argument that that's like, you know, about spring and new beginnings and, you know, like thawing and rebirth and all that sort of stuff. Or you could make an argument it's about like the desolate and isolating nature of farming, you know? It can be whatever you want to be, which for somebody who's as literal as her is unsatisfactory.
Yeah. And unless you actually have the opportunity to talk to the artist, you're only speculating. But as long as you can back up your speculation, you're pretty good, right?
Yeah.
You know?
So
it doesn't.
I think
draw a long bow.
I think it's just going to take some time for a super literal person to understand that subjective subjects like art and literature are
those humanities,
history, you know. You just have to sound like you know what you're talking about.
And it's all about it's all about the experience of the person, you know, who's looking at it or reading it. You know, it's not necessarily the author may have wanted to convey X, Y, and Z, but if you don't receive that message, then it's you know, that's what it's about, not necessarily the intention. It's because it is meant to be subjective and it's meant to be about what you feel when you look at it or you read it or you see, you know, that performance or whatever. It's all about the experience and it's so subjective, so personal.
It's wonderful. So that's all. So we were going to talk today a bit about the uni juggle.
The juggle.
So many. It's interesting with Josh also working for the university because I've had a sense just in terms of my friendship groups and people we know that a lot of people have gone back to uni this year. And Josh has said that from the university's perspective here, there has actually been a huge upswing in domestic. You know, like obviously not getting any internationals.
No, they're not getting any international. Well, there are a few international students, but not very many. And you know how you feel like you make a decision, all of a sudden you see that thing everywhere. It's like you're looking for a type of car, and all of a sudden all you can see is that type of car that you've been looking at. When previously you're like, oh, I haven't seen that much. And it's a little bit like study, isn't it? Like you know, you start talking about it with people and you start noticing that actually, you know, oh my God, well, they're studying and oh my, you know, you need two hands to count the number of people that you know who are studying. It's kind of catchy.
Yeah, it is. And you do. You have like a bit of that confirmation bias because one of the first things I did once I committed, I was like, I need to hear stories from people who have done this while working full time just to make me feel better that this is not a completely insane thing to be doing. And it was just, and it was like, it's funny because when I applied, I had, you know, like obviously I had Operation Move and I had 10 hours of work and I was like, oh, you know, uni on top of that. That's a lot of stuff. Should be okay. And then I took on another contract, which is like another 15 hours. And I was like, oh, this really is. And we had like a check-in because one of the units I'm doing, it's a psychology one, and it's usually always done by first year students. So you've got like a lot of like deers in headlights and, you know, like panic people because it's the first time they've done, even if they're mature age, it's often like their first experience, you know. And there was like this big sort of check-in with everyone. And for the most part, they were all struggling with anatomy, which is not surprising because it's like a beast of a subject, which is why I purposefully chose not to do it in the first session because I was like, I just want to build some confidence here and get some routines happening without like having to name every bump on every bone.
Yeah.
And they're sort of going through what they're struggling with, like listing off what I'm struggling with, just so different from them. I'm like, well, like I've got about 30 hours of work, and like I got a business, and apparently I have 2 children
and a husband, and I like to run like 80k a week, and I go to the gym.
and that was like when I asked on Twitter, I was like, please tell me your stories about working full time and studying part time, and like exercise is the first to go.
Yeah.
Like there definitely are like sacrifices that have to be made,
100%. Yeah.
And I've certainly been, and probably with the training side of things, that is, in some ways it's the hardest to go, in some ways it's the easiest to go. Like it obviously doesn't really impact on anyone if I don't do it, as opposed to if I just stopped making dinner, that would definitely impact on me.
That would not go unnoticed. Yeah, you have to choose, don't you? And you have to, and it's hard to let go of it, because it's the thing that affects you directly, not anybody else in the family.
And you kind of get a bit of that mirror of, this is how much you are still like rampant perfectionist.
Yeah.
In that, like, I'd sort of like have a week where I was like, oh, I didn't do any mobility this week, didn't do any yoga, or I didn't do any strength training other than like going to the gym, and which are all fine things.
Yeah.
But like it is like a big struggle to sort of go, well, now I have to do something that like I know is like, I'd rather have the time to do it, but I don't have the time to do it, so I've got to make some adjustments, and and some of it too is just like not letting that sort of like overwhelm of everything like that you've got to do get in the way of things. Like I'll often, because I've got like one of those stovetop coffee makers that takes 15 minutes, but you've got to kind of watch it. Like you can't just, Josh is always like puts it on and leaves it there, and then he burns the coffee, and then he's like, but your coffee always tastes so much better. It's like, yeah, because I watch it.
Yeah.
Don't leave it there.
I don't leave it unsupervised.
But takes about 15 minutes. And so, like instead of sort of like potentially doom scrolling Facebook for 15 minutes, which I could easily do, like I'll just go into the next room, and, like my like mobility things are like 15 minutes. So it's like I can do this while I'm making coffee, and that kind of thing, because I sort of had that thing. Like in the first couple of weeks, there was so much going on. I had so much going on with work and so much going on at uni, where like I did the running, but I did literally nothing else. Like I was just like, oh, like this is okay because, it's just busy and I just need to get all this stuff done. But what I found is I was probably less productive.
Yeah.
Just because you're not having all of that stuff that reduces your stress levels, and and I feel very different. Like this morning I did that, and then I went and sat down and did some work, and it just like has that real sort of like grounding quality, as opposed to me feeling like I'm just like running around like a
car out of control.
Yeah. And particularly with sort of like you've got lots of different sort of competing priorities. So having some good like mental clarity goes a really long way to sort of going, okay, this is what, because I'm not like a multitasker.
No, but I think, well, anybody who says they are is probably lying to themselves, to be honest. I mean, multitasking is you're just juggling lots of different things poorly.
Yeah. It definitely is like very, very poor. And that's one of the things that I've found too, is like by going, okay, like this is what I do during the week and this is what I do on the weekend, where I actually do very, very little study during
Yeah.
the week, and
Yeah.
I just kind of go, oh, I'll do that on the weekend.
Yeah. And because your jobs, with the jobs that you do and the business that you run, obviously, like, those are virtual things, and that you do those from home, and you don't have to go to a workplace for 6 hours or 8 hours, and therefore have that time set aside as work. So you have to schedule your time and know that, right, well, today it's Monday and I focus on this job today, and on a Tuesday this is what I focus on. And so on a weekend I can spend my time, I can catch up on my coursework for uni, I can listen to my lectures while I'm on my run. And by blocking out that time and dedicating it to, whether it's work, whether it's the business, whether it's uni, you're actually more present and you're more productive in that time, because you're not sort of scattering yourself across 3 or 4 different things in one day. It's like, well, this is the job that I work today. This is the job that I, because it's Monday, this is the job that I work on a Tuesday, or I spend the morning doing this job and I spend the afternoon doing the other job. So you've got, if you block it out, I think and segment it, your brain copes better with it, and you can focus on the thing that you're meant to be doing, instead of thinking about all the other things that you've got lined up waiting for your attention.
Yeah.
Because you know that you've already set that time aside.
Yeah, and it is one of those things where probably like the first thing that I had to sacrifice was like the super early mornings, because in the past where my hours through the week was probably more sort of like part-time, like I could get up super early, do something, and then have like an hour's nap in the afternoon to sort of like recoup the lack of.
Because you need to still have that sleep.
I'm not, certainly don't have any time for napping, and so I'm like, okay, like I just need to get up later, and that just is what it is. And so like I've been much more likely to go to the 6 o'clock class at the gym, and also been a lot more flexible about going. Like I think that you have this thing of like, I pay for 3 classes a week, so I always have to go to 3 classes. But then I'm like, no, I don't. Like, if it doesn't work for me that week, then like going to 2 or going to 1 or whatever it is that works for me that week is fine.
So it's totally okay as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to get the most bang for your buck out of absolutely everything.
Yeah, because sometimes it's counterproductive. Like I'll sometimes look at it, because they'll release, I can see what the workout is the night before, and I might look at that like that's just like a real cardio burner, and I just don't really.
You don't need that.
Right.
You don't need that.
And I'm more than happy to, like there's not really like that much difference of if I pay for like 3 classes or if I pay for 1 or 2. Like it does, it's not really here nor there, but it's just sort of letting go of those things of like, like I have to do this, and it's like, well, no, I don't.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's also,
just go when it's convenient for me to go.
Yeah. And it's only, look, you I don't know, it's only for X amount of time. You've got, each university, trimester or semester is, it's 4 months. Like that's what it is. And then you've got a break where you'll be able to go back and get your money's worth and get your 3 sessions a week and all that sort of stuff in your uni break and, whatever. And then you'll be able to, you can sort of reset for the next 4 months, knowing that, right, well, I can't do everything all at the same time. Something, you can't be juggling all the balls all the time. Sometimes you've got to put a ball down so that you can concentrate on what, those other things are that are important. And university, like, you've made the commitment to study at uni. So, and it costs a lot of money to study at uni. So you want to give yourself the best opportunity that you can to do as well as you can at university, and make sure that you're not wasting your money, you're not throwing it away, because whether you have to pay for it, now that census date has passed, you have to pay for it whether you pass it or not. So you may as well try and do a really good job of it. And because because of the sacrifices that you have to make, because of the compromises that you have to make with the other things that you want to do, your study is of high value to you, and it means more because you have to work harder to be able to make it work with your life. Because let's face it, as women, we carry that extra, we carry the emotional, mental burden most of the time of the family. And, like you, all that free time you did have that you've decided to fill with uni, like it's not, you've got the same amount of commitments that you had before. You just have to figure out how to make the uni work so that by the end of the however long it's going to take you to do your course, that you walk away with something to show for it, because it's important to you. It's something you've decided that you want to do, that is either going to help you change direction with your career, or it's going to add value to what you do already. It's not a decision that you will have entered into lightly, because I know it certainly wasn't for me. And so you have to do your damnedest to make it work, because otherwise, like, it's a massive waste of money, and it's a massive, it's just you've committed, so you kind of have to try and find the ways to make it work, don't you? It's just
So how many subjects are you doing?
2 subjects. So the course is only I say only in inverted commas, only 4 subjects. It's a graduate certificate. So 2 subjects a semester is what I've decided to do. I could have done one subject a semester, but in for a penny and for a pound. So I figure that, like I said, it's 2 4-month blocks. I just got to white knuckle it through the 12 months instead of dragging it out over 2 years. And that means that I can start working towards getting a job in the area, and start working towards the second half of the qualification, which is the credentialing side of it, which is, 1,000 hours worth of
Wow.
practical work.
A lot of
so
hours, isn't it?
and I've got 4 years to do that, but and it will take that long if I'm not working in the area. So I need to, I kind of figure that, let's just go in hard and fast over this 12 months, and then breathe again at the end of the year. So rather than start ripping off the band-aid nice and fast.
Are you working the same amount as you were last year?
Well, I was working full-time last year. I was 5 days a week, and sometimes extra. So with study in mind, I have dropped my hours back to 4 days a week, and our hours sort of fluctuate a little bit depending on demand. So when I work during the week, it's 6.5 hour shifts, and on the weekend I work usually 8 hours. So it's not quite as full on as last year, but at the same time it gives me a little, which gives me a little bit of breathing space. But at the same time, I don't know, you kind of think, I'll block out these days to do my study and blah, blah, blah. And then next thing you know, you're like, hang on a minute, those days were supposed to be blocked out, and now they seem to be really full. What's going on here? So I have to be really careful that I don't overcommit myself. And I do have a tendency to fill my days, never waste a day off.
It's just like really easy for those things to sort of
creep up. They
creep up, like whether you've got like I noticed, like there was a week where I'd like even just like a couple of, like I had an osteo appointment and a massage appointment, and all of a sudden that's like 2 hours out of my day that I've then got to get back from somewhere because I've still got the same amount of stuff to do. Or it's sort of like, okay, like just all of the life stuff, like, like when do you like go do like appointments for the kids, or like when do I go to the doctor, or
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
you know, like I've got to like register, like do all the car rego stuff in the next few weeks, you know, or you know, like Riley wants me to pick up a package from the post office, and even though like the post office is literally like 500 meters away, even that, like it's just those little things. It's like, oh, and while I'm here, I'll do some grocery shopping and you know, blah blah blah, and then you know, like that's sort of like another hour, or you know, like you're picking up the kids from school because they're in sick bay, or you know, like whatever it is, like you're sort of like whatever you think of, like I guess the kids are in school for like 6 hours, and so I tend to think of it as 6 hours, but it rarely ends up being.
Yeah, some days it's only 2 hours that you've actually got free, and it's, you know, like I've tried to stack appointments, and so that's been my plan, is that instead of having someone having one appointment on a Tuesday and then one of the other kids having their regular appointment on a Wednesday, you know, like I've consolidated. So Wednesdays, you know, over an hour and a half, I've got people at appointments, and so that leaves my morning free. And it leaves my afternoon free. So in theory, I can do some study in the morning. I can take the kids to their appointments and have something to eat while they're in their appointments, and then I can go back and do some more study in the afternoon. What actually happens is that I lie in bed when my alarm goes off at 5:30, and I decide that no, it's too dark to go for a run. And I don't have to be anywhere at 9 o'clock today. So I've got till 11 o'clock free. So I'm actually going to go and do my run while the kids are at school, because you know it's cool enough during the day that you can get away with that. It's too dark in the morning at the moment. It's not, you know, it's barely daylight at 6:30 in the morning. So, you know, for the next 2 weeks or so until daylight savings stops, you know, and so you just think I have a natural tendency to like shift things around to make them a little bit more palatable, you know, for example, like not having to run in the cold and the dark. And that's okay, as long as I know that I'm going to have to pay the piper eventually. Like I can't just keep doing that, and I have to, you know, there are going to be times where I have to be really, you know, quite firm with myself and say, actually, no, that is study time, and you will end up in a panic in about 2 weeks' time if you don't study during that allocated study time. So, you know, like I'll try and get ahead. My first assignment's already done. It's not due for another 10 days or so. And I had it finished at the beginning of last week. So I'm working on my next assignment, which is due in 4 weeks' time. And then I'm a week ahead with my coursework, so that I have got a little bit of buffer space, you know, a little bit of a buffer there. So, you know, it's so technically this week I've got the whole week to work on my next assignment and to, you know, get myself in a position where I feel like I can put that together. And you know, but then, you know, parent teacher interviews pop up, and then you know, I've got to do mandatory training tomorrow at work. So my Tuesday, where I previously had nothing on at all, I've literally now got the whole day booked with things that I have to do. So transition, you know, one of my children to a new school starts tomorrow. And I've got mandatory training, and I've got an appointment, and, you know, and it's like, well, and parent teacher interviews tomorrow. It's like, well, see you later, Tuesday. It was nice to know you. It was nice knowing you. We'll get reacquainted next week, you know, and even just things like COVID vaccines. Like, you know, I had to have to drive to Sydney and back to have my COVID vaccine. So there's 7 hours out of my day for a 1 hour appointment. And it's like, you know, like I don't have a lot of choice around situations like that. So I kind of just have to know that those sort of things, I know that my plans, my best laid plans, are going to get derailed very easily, because I have 4 kids. And I have and I have things that are non-negotiable. So I have to, you know, if it means that I ignore the washing for an extra day so that I can prioritize getting some study done, so be it. I don't, you know, if it means, you know, that things don't get done around the house, then that's fine. It's only 12 months. I've put as many systems in place as I can to make things work smoothly and keep things ticking along. There's only so much you can do, so you just have to try and, and kind of like I have to readjust my thinking in that, like, well, I've only got half an hour. There's no point. I might as well just get on Facebook and Instagram and scroll and whatever. And it's like, no, I've got half an hour. So that's at least 20 to 25 minutes of study that I can get done. I can read a journal article or two in that time. So, it's a reprioritization of that time. So, and if there's less time for Facey and there's less time for Instagram, then you know what? That's not a bad thing. In all honesty, for you, maybe not so much because you've got a business to run, but from, and also, there's the coaching aspect of it, the things that I do as well. It's like I have to actually be more structured around what time, how much time and when I allocate that time to do those things, because people are paying for a running plan or people are relying on me to put something in the system so that they know what they're doing. So, rather than just, oh yeah, I've got 20 minutes, I'll just pop, I'll put this in for so-and-so. Yeah, actually, I have to actually set aside specific time that, right, it's, I don't know, Sunday evening, time to do running plans.
Yeah.
It's time to do my coaching work. Which before I would have been like, hell no, it's Sunday evening, surely there's some Netflix on. But now, there's
there's no such thing as a weekend.
No, there isn't. No,
which
really isn't.
It is fine. Like I sort of have found by like putting Operation Move stuff and study stuff on the weekend, I still feel like it's enough of a break from the work week. Because they're both things that I'm passionate about, and it's different. Like I'm not like sort of doing things that are based on, like the priorities that my contracts have or whatever. And, it's just, it's different enough. And by sort of segmenting it that way, it feels different enough where, but, also other things get put on the weekend. So, like the kids wanted to go to the shops yesterday, and I was thinking, go to the shops, they'll get their Happy Meals. We'll get there's the market was on, so they'll get their snow cone, and we'll come home. And then I got there and they're like, no, we want to go to this shop here, and then we want to do clothes shopping, but there's no clothes that I like here, so we're going here, which is all
escalates.
Like they need clothes, so like it's all good if they find something that they. Oh my god, 100%. There's like Riley was taking ages to pick out things, and she's like, she picked some things that she thought she might like, and I'm like, let's just buy them and let's just go. And she's like, what if they don't fit? I said, then I'll take them back. It's like, we'll leave the tags on, we'll take them back, but we're not like trying things on. And even as it was, admittedly, like I didn't get out early enough for my long run. So by the time I got back home, it was like 20 to 11. And then by the time we did the shopping trip and we got back here, it was like 2. And then like that's like a really big part of the day.
Yeah, that's the bulk of your day gone, isn't it?
And then, and I think that when you've gone for a long time without having to, like I've never, like obviously written plenty of like blog posts or whatever, but I rarely edit.
Yeah.
I just sort of like write it and post it and move it along. So going back to academic writing, where like what I'm working on for the first assignment is it's a creative poster. So the criteria is sort of like equal weighting in 4 parts, which is like referencing like how you manage the discussion when people ask you questions at the end. And then like the content of the poster in terms of the text, but also like how it's presented in terms of like what images you've picked, like how you've chosen to make it interesting, like that sort of creative aspect of it. And I looked at it and I was like, there are too many words on here.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like one of those things where a lot of those topics, like you could do something in sort of like a fairly concise way, but you could probably also write like an entire book on it. So, you know, so I looked at it as like, I need to get this down. So that the pictures are more obvious. So it doesn't just look like a wall of text when I'm presenting it. And it's like, editing, like what words are you going to sacrifice? And it's like, I really like that bit, but, you know, like this is kind of repetitive. And that always takes, like, I thought that I would have had time on the Sunday to like work on that and then do some of my revision. As it turns out, not.
No.
So I'm kind of relying at this stage, I'm getting the presentation out of the way. And then I'm kind of relying on having like a little bit of breathing room to catch up on my revision notes. And then we'll be sort of back on track to manage the other assessments. Are basically they're either exams or quizzes, or like they each have, like one has a report and one has an essay. So that will be sort of next, but then you've also got like, oh good, you know, like school holidays are coming up, which means that
you'll be studying while the kids are at home.
One of the contracts that I work on has, like, it's not like I'm not working at all during the school holidays, but the person I work for isn't working. So, you know, like it's much reduced, which has been an absolute saving grace in the past in terms of like managing the kids being on holidays and everything like that, and not having to sort of like be checking in on the phone like all the time. But it's sort of like, you know, it's not exactly going to give me more time like that. No. But also the kids are also home, and they're turning 10 and 13 in the school holidays. So I have a few like birthdays to work.
Yeah, you've got some things to do, and I think like anticipating that, like you can look forward to that, and you can say, well, these are the birthdays, so I'm going to, you know, I'm going to need some time to make cakes or whatever, buy them.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
maybe this year they get bought cakes.
They've sort of picked activities this year, so they'll still be obviously still be making cakes and churros in this particular scenario, but I think that Riley's going to go to like the local water park with a few of her friends, and Piper wants to go to the beach to look at sea snails with a couple of her friends, and assume we'll go out for ice cream afterwards or something like that. And so like that does make it easier in that it's not like a full sort of like catered party. Like I can worry about birthday cakes and the actual days of activity, and also because they're so close together, it'll be actually, although Riley's having hers actually a week after her actual birthday, so that all of her friends could come, which also makes it a little bit easier. So we can sort of like do the whole family thing, but then her actual party isn't until right before they go back to school.
Good old Easter holidays.
With Easter being in the middle, you know, it's more like 3 weeks than 2 weeks.
Because they finish up on the Thursday before. On the what is it, the 2nd or something, the 1st of April or something, and then they don't go back until the 20 something. So it's the 19th, I think they go back, 20th. So it's really because we're the same. We've got loads of birthdays. We've got, you know, my mum's 70th. We've got my birthday. Got my daughter turns 13. You know, and we're going away for a few days. So I've got to manage, you know, when I've got an assignment due at the beginning of the second week of the holidays. I've got a test the week before. So, you know, like managing, you know, just knowing that on that Thursday, I need to, Thursday afternoon after work, I've got an open book exam that I have to do, because it's only open for 24 hours, and I'll be at work for the first 7 hours that it's open. So so I just know that, well, Thursday evening, my dad's going to be staying over because he's babysitting the kids while I'm at work that day and the next day, and he's decided he's going to have a sleepover. So I'm just going to have to say, well, I'm sorry, everybody, but at the minute I've got something else that I actually have to do tonight. And I'm really lucky. Like, you've got contact hours, so you've got time where you actually have to be physically at the university for your lectures, whereas I've got online seminars, which while it would be really lovely to be able to make it for them, I don't have to, and they're actually at really inconvenient times when you've got kids doing after school activities, because they're on Thursdays or Friday afternoons directly after school. So you're busy driving around, dropping people off and picking them up and whatnot. So, but I just, I watch them over the weekend, on my lunch break or something. So I can work around that. But, like, planning ahead, I think, is literally the best thing that you can do. And I think, like, when we've talked about this before over the years, about how to plan your time so that you actually make time. You allow yourself enough time to get the things done that you want to get done, so you're not constantly, bumping into the next appointment, or you're, running late, or you run out of time, or things like that. So, like a book, booking yourself in for these things and allowing, like, what's the actual realistic amount of time that it's going to take me to do this. So, it might be, you might have a 45-minute run to do, but you don't just finish your run and then bang straight into study or whatever. Like, you cool down, you might go and get a coffee or a cool drink, and then you kind of have to allow yourself a little bit of transition time to, to move from, right, I've just done my intervals, or I've just done my hill sprints or whatever. And I need to just reset and recover a little bit, and then I can actually move into that space where I'm going to be working or studying.
I plan for sort of like, if I'm sort of like, must have done about 50 different drafts about how I thought I could structure my week.
Yeah.
It's peak me. But anyway, I did. And when I was doing it, I always put in like little sort of like half-hour breaks through, because it's just not reasonable to sort of like work through that. Like, I can't go, kids are at school from 9 to 3, that's 6 hours of work I can bang out. Like, it doesn't
your
work.
Brain doesn't work like that, and you stop being productive after a certain period of time, because you actually need to get up and move and get the blood flowing, and you actually also got to eat lunch and toilet breaks and whatnot. So like, just sort of structuring it that way makes it a little bit better. But then it also makes it obvious, like, okay, if I expect that I'm going to have to do this work, which is going to take me about 25 to 30 hours over the week, then like, where I'm going to find that space has to accommodate like those break times, and potentially something going pear-shaped somewhere along the way to create that. Because like my tutorial, because like the lectures are online, so I just listen to them. But the tutorial, and one of my tutorials is, the tutorials are both, like, one is online and it's at 9 a.m. on Wednesday, which is like, is quite hard because of like school drop off. Like, if I get them off early, I can join in on time, but I'd often be, a little bit late to that. And then the in-person one is at the worst time imaginable for somebody with kids, because it's from 2 till 4. So, like, if it was after they'd finished school, at the age that they are, I would be very comfortable to like let them in and then like leave them to their own devices while I went down to uni for a couple of hours, no problem. But with
like, and because Piper finishes earlier and she's less confident about like using a key or letting herself in, it's like, I can't do this. So my mum's been coming over, but she's
not always there.
No,
either.
she's off visiting her boyfriend for a few weeks. So like, I got a friend to do it for me last week, and then I was like, I've got a message that I sent an email to the tutor and said, look, I will attempt for this not to be what I do, but I might need to like pick her up from school early and take her down with me to the tutorial, and just keep her, like, she would be absolutely fine, sort of like sit there doing her own thing for that amount of time. That's no problem. And she said, yeah, fine. And after I sent the email, I was like, Josh works there. I can just right at his office and like punch a few keys, photocopy a few things, whatever it is. So, like, and it is what you can see how it does make it like quite challenging in the environment where they're limiting the face-to-face. So in the past, they probably would have had two options for their tutorial. Like you can come here or you can come here, to try and accommodate like people who are on like working schedules or have kids or whatever. And now it's just one. And so they've obviously gone that way. But it is it is one of those things that sort of can be like a little bit harder to manage, and I guess a bit like less important. Like once I've done, like the main thing is for me to be there. I mean, it is mandatory, but the main thing is to be there for the presentation. So once I do, like that's all fine, and they're sort of understanding and everything like that. But that's also part of why when I structured it, I was like, do one subject that's in person to just sort of minimise my travel down there. And I mean, and who even knows, like the way the floods have been, like
you might not even
be online soon. Like they're just, I think it should be okay, because there are only been a few places where roads have been closed, where you, in those sort of like those real sort of like valley areas where it accumulates. But so it's just it has been one of those things where you've just sort of like got to like make the most of it, and also it's I guess for me it's just sort of testing it out at the moment, because it's a ordinarily if it was full time it would be a 3-year degree. So if you did traditional part time it would be 6 years, but I'm attempting to do it in trimesters, which would make it 4 years. What the downside of that is, there's very little downtime in between the periods.
You only get like a week or two in between, a week off or 10 days off or something in between each subject.
Feeling you probably because I think that they still have to run it as session 1 and session 2, so I think you'd still get a month in between session 1 and session 2, and probably nothing really in between session 2 and session 3, and I'm just going to try it out, because like I might do 1 year and go, that's not sustainable, and I got to sustain this for 4 years.
Absolutely.
And I might then go like maybe I do like 3 and 2, or maybe I do 2 and 2, and it just like it's going to take as long as it takes. But that's sort of like what I've been kind of focusing on. It's like whatever I do, because it is that longer time domain.
Yes,
it has
absolutely.
to be more sustainable. Like if I was doing a year, I could just like gut it out and just go.
Absolutely, and that's 100%. That's that's the luxury of doing it as a postgrad as opposed to going back to doing the undergrad, is that you need to, like, you've got a lot more content, you've got a lot more time commitment to getting this done ahead of you, so you have to be able to maintain it. You don't want to burn yourself out after the first 12 months or 18 months. You have to be able to find some kind of a balance that works for you, so that you don't lose your mind, because otherwise, like, you'll end up going, well, I can't do this anymore. And that's the last thing that you want to do. Like, you need to be able to finish it.
undergraduate degree before is like you can be a little bit smarter about things. Like I remember, like in the past, I probably would have not wanted to have gone first with the presentation, whereas this was like, nah, like this is, I will be marked better for going first because you get more leniency with going first. I'll get it out of the way. It'll just be something that can be done. And, you know, and similarly with, you know, like just like, even though I'm well out of practice, like the process of like taking notes and, you know, like doing research, it's all stuff that I have experience with. So you can kind of like some of the stuff you can see how it would be quite challenging for people who are just coming out of high school.
Yeah.
Whereas like I've done research topics before. So like after the initial shock of going, well, library, it's been a while since I've had to go to the library to do this. After that, you are able to sort of like pick things up like a little bit more quickly than maybe what sort of like.
And also you've got a lot more life experience and actual real life, you know, coaching experience and things like that a lot of, you know, people who
my random podcast knowledge just like comes to the fore.
Yes, fantastic.
It's
fantastic.
Doing the thing on why the topic is on why some sports were deemed not suitable for women. Like I obviously went back and did a lot of the historical stuff, but I'm also aware because of like the content that I consume that there are a lot of like modern examples still play into that in terms of the upper level of women's bodybuilding or with like women in contact sports and, you know, like or even like the exceptions where you have like women who were like really impressive strong women performers but did it within the scope of the circus because they couldn't do it like within a mainstream sport, you know, all things which would have absolutely the benefit of having listened to sport and fitness themed podcasts.
all those long runs that you've done or weights that you've lifted while you're listening to podcasts. It's actually all been research.
It's all research.
All research, and it's all been for the greater good, and it's all worthwhile because you just and it caters to the way that the different ways that people learn as well, doesn't it? You know, you've had all this audio input you know, which engages your brain in a different way rather than reading articles or reading textbooks or reading, you know, things like on the internet. It's to be able to listen to things. It's sometimes a far more engaging way to process information. So, and also like you can listen to X amount of different podcasts that all offer different views on that thing. So you know, and most of them are in a short, easy to consume, easy to digest format, which is, you know, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and like a lot of them too are really designed at the layman, as opposed to sometimes you can get into academic stuff where they might have like all of this knowledge on the topic, but they are not knowledgeable about how to communicate that to someone who doesn't understand it. So like ages ago with like one of the podcasts that I listen to, Stronger by Science, sometimes they do like quite a deep dive into statistics and what they mean and that kind of stuff. But because they're really good at explaining, okay, like this is what a p-value is, or, you know, like whatever. Then when I go into the uni stuff, it's like, oh, I've actually heard this before and I kind of already have a sense of what they're talking about. So it just makes it that much easier because you've had it sort of explained to you in connection with something that's interesting as opposed to just like as an abstract value. You know,
100%.
So have you had to change much with your running since you started?
No, I don't know. Oh no, not really. Because I think because I was coming from a place of dealing with the injury that I had last year, and then, you know, energy levels and sort of just trying to focus on a little bit more consistency and not really having a goal as such for my running, other than just trying to build back some consistency and find that motivation to get out the front door, which is what I was really struggling with for a while. And so I think, like initially I had said to my coach, I'm just going to do my own thing. I know, I'm going to run a few days a week. I'm going to dial everything back because of uni. I would be really happy if I can just run, sort of 30 odd kilometres, 40 kilometres a week, and just use it as a form of self-care and bit of mental health, running, just sort of a bit of time out, bit of fresh air kind of thing. And then I got an entry to UTA 22, and so all of a sudden I'm running to a plan. I'm back with my coach. I'm doing all these things, and I've got a little bit more structure, which I have just, I've discovered that I really do prefer to have the structure rather than just winging it by myself. It sort of feels a little bit pointless and not pointless, but just directionless. So doing that has given, it's a nice medium between having a little bit of space to de-stress, but not to the point where I'm actually adding in extra stress and extra pressure. And I've made sure that I've got some really firm boundaries around that, because I can, it's easy for it to tip from from being therapeutic to being something that's actually taking away from everything else. So I've set some fairly firm boundaries around, I only want to do 4 runs a week, and I've got maximum time constraints and things like that, because I just I can't. For me, the focus is not on volume. It's not on getting X, Y, and Z done necessarily, or reaching a certain goal. I would like for it to be consistent. I would like for it to be adding to my life, not taking away from other things that I actually need to be focusing on at the moment. Like I was umming and ahhing about, because of course, the closer you get to race day, the more 100k and 50k entries become available, because people either get injured or they can't go, or commitments change or whatever. And so it's I was really tempted to go for the 50k and the 100k entry, and I know that I can do a 50k, and I know I can do a 100k without overdoing it on the training side of things. But at the same time, it's less about the physical energy and more about the mental energy and emotional energy that goes into preparing for races like that, and of that distance. And then the potential for the cancellation of the race is still significant. And I've actually committed to putting my mental and emotional energy into studying this year, not entering ultras. So so it feels like I've managed to find a nice balance between a little bit of R&R in the form of a little bit of time away, to have time with friends, doing things that I enjoy doing, but not so much that I'm actually going to be shooting myself in the foot with an extended recovery time, all the planning and practicing and everything that goes into training for ultras and whatnot. So I feel like I've in a happy place as far as what's manageable, what's value adding, and versus what is actually going to start taking me away from the other things that I do need to focus my energy on this year. And family, work, study, they're the 3 main things that I need to think about this year. And running is, where it's previously been something of higher importance, this year it doesn't get to be. It has to be supportive rather than something that takes away from my other priorities. You know, it's and it's only, you know, it's only short term. It's not forever, and that's okay. So, you know, managing, like, I can only do what I can do, and everything else just has, like, take a number. I can't, you know, I can't. I have to be careful not to prioritize, that I'm not prioritizing the wrong things this, like, in the next 12 months, because, you know, I don't want to walk away from 12 months of study going, well, that was the worst decision of my life. You know, I want to walk away going, right, what's next? You know, like, where to from here kind of thing, rather than wishing I'd never decided to, you know, try and change my path, or, you know, take the road less traveled, or whatever. It's and it takes some self-control, you know, because all these races pop up and it's like, would you like to enter this race for next year? It's like, oh, I could totally do that. It's like, it's a mental form of sitting on your hands so that you don't have that race entry accidentally fall into your shopping cart. I have to actually, you know, I've made a decision. I have to stick with, like, my ultra that I'm training for this year is my education. It's not, you know, that's where the bulk of my energy has to go, other than, you know, being a parent, being a wife, and being an employee. So I don't think my running at this stage hasn't really suffered or anything like that. In fact, I'm probably running a little bit more consistently than what I was over the Christmas holidays. But yeah, it hasn't had to give out to anything else yet, which might change. Who knows? You know, things get a little bit more intense as the semester goes on, so that may change, and you know what, I just have to be totally fine with that. So because I just, you know, I'm actually really invested in the process of the whole study thing. So
sometimes too, like, I've found that, like, it's also going, okay, like, I need to donate my fresh brain to study first. So also, and it's convenient now that it's cooler, so it's not like run first thing or not at all anymore. So, you know, I have even found, like, that it's been quite nice with, like, if I get up early and can do like a couple of hours of, you know, like, work or study before anyone's up. And then, you know, like, if I've got time, then I can, you know, run later or whatever. But yeah, not always kind of going, oh, okay, now, like, I'm going to study, but it's like after I've just had a big run and my brain's kind of fried from.
Yeah, my brain gets. I agree. Like, I can't do a long run and then, like, you know, have a shower, have something to eat, and then switch straight into study. Like, my brain sometimes is pretty fried after a long run. So, you know, you're too tired to be concentrating on, you know, on things. And sometimes the best thing you can do is actually have a sleep, have a nap. So, you know, it's just, I think you've just got to read it and not be frightened to make the choice that actually promotes better brain functioning later.
And I think also, like, I've got, like, a few things that I've entered, like, race-wise this year, which, like, some I've actually registered for, some so far I just looked at and thought, oh, that would be cool if I can get there for that. You're focusing a little bit more on the things that are a bit more local, because, like, traveling is nice, but you do have to take into account, okay, if I'm traveling over the weekend for a race, then I can't, realistically, I'm not going to be studying that weekend. So those things have to line up. So, like, I've registered for the Gold Coast, and I'm looking at the Pan Pac Masters, because that's, like, a lot of fun. You got a lot of, like, individual events, but I really am just looking at, like, running them, not like
racing.
And sometimes those things can end up racy if you happen to be feeling good on the day, but just leaving it open to go, I'll probably just run.
Yeah.
You know, and because then I'll recover better, I'll be less wiped out, you know, following that. And I can just enjoy the fact that people are, you know, like back to being able to go to events and,
I know, yeah.
people
And
and, you know, and all of that sort of stuff. Because it does take a lot of, like, there is a lot of mental energy that's involved in, like, getting yourself up for, you know, like a hard effort for a race and then recovering afterwards, and you know.
And it's not always the race that takes the most out of you. Some, like, the recovery. You know, if you go in to run a marathon, then you're going to be tired, physically tired, for at least a week afterwards.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, and if you race it, then that tiredness is increased. You know, who knows what percent, but it's, you know, the harder you work on the day, the harder you're going to have to recover. So, you know, like, it's, I could run 100K, I could do a 100K trail run over 24 hours or whatever. That's fine. I'm not trying to race it, but I'm then tired for 2 weeks afterwards. Like, I can't afford to take 2 weeks out of my study, you know, unless it's actually in my uni break. And you know, unfortunately it's not. But it's not just about the day that the race is on. You've got to think about what the fallout is from that, in your energy levels, because you've still got a jam-packed schedule when you get home the next day. So, you know, that work doesn't go away.
No.
So, you know, it's and the further you want to run, the more you've got to do for your body maintenance stuff. You know, not 25 anymore.
There's a lot, like, I sort of look at, like, okay, like, to maintain this amount of distance in a week, there are certain non-negotiable strength things that have to happen. Otherwise, that running is going to break down my body. And so, and that is like another thing that I've been sort of working on, is instead of doing like longer strength things, I kind of go in, like, I do my mobility and then I'll do like 2 lifts, and I'll probably do that more. So instead of like doing that, you know, a couple of times a week, it would probably be most days, but it only takes me, you know, like probably 20 or 30 minutes. And if I can manage that, then that running is fine. But if I can't manage that, there are sorts of things like, you know, your calf raises and your strength work and your deadlifts and all that sort of stuff, then things are going to start happening. And, like, I even noticed the last couple of weeks just getting like a bit of stuff happening on like the ball of my foot, which is just from, it's like a one, I need to be doing calf raises on it. And it's also just like when I was at the osteo, she said, oh, like the soleus is really tight. So it's sort of like pulling on it a little bit and just needs a little bit more TLC. But if I ignored that, didn't do calf raises and didn't do like the stretching and the other things, then that could easily like turn into something more serious. So, you know, like, it's just like, and then there might be a point where you're like, well, you know, like, I don't have the time to maintain this level of volume, so it needs to like go down a notch, which is, and you know, because like ultimately no one cares.
But it's only it's only you who it's you as the runner, or it's me as the runner, or you know, like, and it's the same. You know, it's the same for everybody. Nobody's going to judge you. Nobody cares. You're doing it because it's something that you want to do, not because it's something that somebody tells you have to do. And you can, you know, if you're finding you're really pressed for time and you can't do all the body maintenance stuff, or you'd rather spend that time running, or you're trying to find a balance, maybe it's a matter of dropping a run and spending that hour instead of running. You're actually taking that time to do your strength work and you know, like we all know that the answer is not always more running, as much as we'd like to be running more.
Yeah.
That you can't do that unless you've got the time to be able to spend on the extra strength work and the extra body maintenance stuff. Like if you can't maintain it, you know, without falling into a puddle of injury, a cycle of injury, you know, you really have to be honest about the fact that instead of, you know, for example, with your running volume, that at the moment, if you're at 80k a week and you're maintaining that, but all of a sudden your stress levels go up because of uni and your work commitments go up and your, you know, the amount of time that you have to dedicate to study goes up, then you might, you know, like you still need to take care of yourself from a rest and recovery point of view. So maybe your running drops off that week or that 2 weeks or whatever, but you know, you kind of, it's it doesn't have, you know, we all have to realize that it doesn't have, it is not linear. It doesn't have to, well, this is what I run, so this is what I'm going to run every week by hell or high water. You know, it's all about putting one of the balls down every now and again, and sometimes if you put it down for a day or two and you can pick it up again, or, you know, but if you don't put something down and you drop it and you break it, then that's not an ideal situation to be in. So you have to, you know, you have to be honest with yourself, don't you, about what you're capable of doing, and that's really difficult sometimes, isn't it?
It's hard to,
think
because
that we
it's
can
like
do what
probably
we do.
the biggest thing that I've probably gone like with CrossFit, instead of going like 3 days, oftentimes it would be more like once or twice, and that's because like it's like group stuff, it's very socially rewarding, like I really enjoy going, but if I'm tossing up between, okay, like done all of this running, what I really need to do is some of this strength stuff and strength imbalance stuff, versus like this day at the gym, which is just, you know, like cardio with weights. I've got to do the other stuff to protect the running, and so like letting go of something that is social is pretty hard, but it is just one of those things where you do have to make sort of like hard decisions with it and go, well, you know, like I can keep the CrossFit sessions, but I'd have to run less. Or I can cut them and I can kind of keep the running where it is. And, you know, like, like that, they are just and particularly for me too, where it is a 20-minute drive away. So it's not like I'm like wandering down the street, you know, like it's anything I do there, you know, you're adding, you know, like.
You're adding in commuting time. You know, it's a 40-minute there and back. It's the same for me.
It's not like a big deal if I sort of go down there and I do something at the gym and then I run for an hour or whatever. But they're all the sort of like the little things that sort of start to come into it, and it's like, okay, well, I have to just see like what I can do and what makes the most sense for me to do. And you know, and because the thing that would be a lot worse than, you know, than running less or giving up gym sessions or whatever it is,
not running at all,
to get injured again because I was doing too much for like my stress levels. And you know, for the most part, things have been like on a really good sort of like improvement in terms of like post stress fracture and everything. But I'm very aware that I feel like it was like an under recovery from stress more so than actually like what I was.
That's exactly what I feel my injury was. You know, it was about. I wasn't allowing myself, you know, enough recovery time. There was, you know, the increased workload, you know, time on my feet, working full time, increased running, and all that sort of stuff. That was okay, but I didn't balance it out with enough recovery time. And so when your body doesn't have enough time to recover, and when you're, you know, constantly under stress, whether it's physical stress or emotional stress or mental stress, doesn't matter. If there's not enough recovery time, then that's when things break, isn't it? Like it's,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And it is just one of the things that I have done is like I paid for this this HRV app. It actually uses the camera and your finger rather than I have the chest strap, but this is easier in terms of like I just do it for a minute. If I had a different type of chest strap, I could use the chest strap, so I might do that at some stage. Hold it for a minute. It pulls in like a bunch of your training data from like Strava or Final Surge or whatever, and it also asks you to rate your sleep, like how you're feeling, how sore you are. So it's taking in a bunch of subjective measures as well as the HRV, and then it will sort of like also sort of like look at, like, did you have anything to drink? Did you have your period? Blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. And you put it all in there, and then it will has your HRV, and it will kind of you can sort of see things over time, but it'll also give you feedback. So this morning it said to me, like your subjective measures are positively trending, but your HRV is unusually high. So like maybe like take it easy today. And so like I can look at that and go, okay, well my thought about doing PT but not running until tomorrow is probably a good one. I'll go with that. And it can kind of just like support those times when you're thinking, like maybe I do need an extra rest day. And it can be, so it is one of those things that sort of like after the injury, I was like, I think I could probably like use a little bit of that just to sort of like have that extra input onto what I'm doing. And also for the times when, like sometimes it's the other way. It's like, I feel a bit tired. Maybe I shouldn't go. And like HRV is like, you're fine.
You are totally fine. You need to get out of your own way.
So, like it can be, and I think too, just having the particularly having those markers of how you're sleeping, it's like this constant reminder of like, did you get to sleep early enough? Probably not.
It's like a little mini check-in with your coach.
Exactly. Have a good afternoon.
I will. It's lovely to chat, and we just we've got to just hang in there with the study thing. Keep prioritizing, hey?
Yeah, priorities.
The right things.
Thank you for listening. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can head over to patreon.com/opmove, and you can also check out the coaching options at opmove.com, which is just opmove.com, and I will catch you hopefully sooner rather than later.